Okay, welcome to the Home Lord Podcast. I'm Joel, this is Justin, and today we have Cliff Barney. So we're going to do a quick intro. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you do for work.
Yeah, all right. Well, my name's Clifton Barney. I grew up here in Salt Lake City, Utah, actually in Riverton. I spent most of my life in construction trades. So now I currently own a small construction company here in Salt Lake City, and we do a lot of little projects for people. And also we do a little bit of real estate investing on the side too as well.
Okay, tell us how many units you own today.
I control 22 doors currently. Hopefully another 6 here in the next week or two. So we'll bring us to 28?
Okay, and I think it's really cool. Those are 2 8-plexes, right?
There will be 2 8-plexes and 1 6-plex.
Okay, awesome. And what do you like to do for fun?
These days I work a lot, so I'm a workaholic for sure. I like to hustle. I like to make money and try to be successful. But secondly, I spend a lot of time with my family. I have a 2-year-old grandson. I love every moment I get to spend with him. So usually if I have free time, I spend it with them.
That's awesome.
Okay, good for you. That was perfect. So we're going to jump into some questions, and then we'll talk a little bit more about house hacking and being a landlord. So how did you first learn about house hacking?
Well, ironically enough, I really didn't per se learn about it. I just kind of stumbled into it. In 2009, when the housing crash happened, we had a lot of work and everything just stopped almost like instantly. And so we ended up finding ourselves scrambling to pay bills. And so I had a friend that had some children and they needed a place to live. And so we started out, our very first house hack was my primary home, and we let them live in our basement. And that's kind of where it all began. And it kind of progressed from there.
Did you have to finish your basement to accommodate them?
Well, so that's a great question. We were strapped for money, and so no, we didn't do any special accommodations. They were strapped for money, so basically all we did is said, hey, we'll share our kitchen. The basement's livable. There's bedrooms and a living room down there, and so we moved them in, and they just lived there, and we shared, the utilities upstairs. For that was my very first experience, and I do not recommend that. It was a lot of stress, a lot of stuff going on, really chaotic. So that is not the way to house hack. But it did get us out of a bind, so that's how we got started. Yes.
That's some good creative thinking. So what would you say is the right way to house hack?
Oh, well, what we did after they moved out. Yeah. So, of course, we were in suppressed times, right? Still no money, but I had a credit card at that time with a $20,000 limit. And so what we did is I ended up being a contractor, right? We ended up just remodeling the basement. So we put in a kitchen, we put in a separate entranceway, and then we put in a driveway for them. So it was completely separated out. Then we brought a new family in after that, and that was the ticket right there. Like separate entrance, separate living spaces. We didn't have to co-live at all. And so it was just way, way better for me and the tenants.
Okay, just to confirm here, you didn't have any of that with the first one? You were sharing? Oh, man, okay, now I understand why you're saying that. I was just like, well, what do you mean? That was a great strategy, but you were missing a lot of the core components that make it a fantastic
Yeah, we basically just had roommates the first time around, and that, it got us out of a pickle, right? But it was not the way to do it. And I learned that very, very quick. I never did that one again.
And then you did the right ways repeatedly.
Yep, we figured it out the second go around.
So let me ask you this, because you've obviously had a lot of different experiences with the right way of house hacking, the wrong way of house hacking. What surprised you the most as you were becoming a first-time landlord?
Oh, man. I actually thought about this question a lot.
We're digging up some deep memories here for Cliff.
Review notes if you need it, man.
So the answer to that question, I got to review what I said. Okay. So, sorry I didn't remember that.
Oh, you're good. We edited it out, remember?
All right. So, I would say the separate living arrangements. I learned that lesson really hard the first time when we basically did roommates, and we learned that was really, really hard, not sustainable. And so the best lesson that I took away from the first situation I was in was separate living quarters completely, because it was so much stress on me and them and, my relationship and my child, that it was like we had a young family, and it was a lot. I'm glad we did it. It was a great experience, but I would not do that again.
Can we get a little more granular into the core components? So you talked about separate entrance was one. So would you say a separate entrance on the side or back of the house is preferred?
I would say obviously the house will dictate that to some degree on the design and the lot and everything about it.
Good answer.
My particular house was on the side yard, and it was in the front yard. So it worked out really good. We were able to put in a driveway and a stairway right into the house, and it was just like right in the front yard. That was probably, I would say if you can do that, that's probably the best way to do it. But if you have a walkout basement or some kind of setup where you can do it in the backyard, you can always put a pathway back there for them to walk, either way.
So separate entrance, separate parking.
Yep.
What other components would you say are necessary to make it a good house hack?
Oh, well, they need their own bathroom, basically their own apartment. Like if you want to do this right, they need their own entrance, own kitchen, own laundry, own apartment, own bedrooms, so that you guys are completely separated. You don't want anybody just co-living situation. It just adds a lot of extra stress to the whole arrangement. And if you can keep it separately so that where they are truly a tenant, they have their own space, so much better for you as the landlord.
You end up being full-time babysitter if you do the roommate stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, and then of course things tend to disappear when you have roommates. So that's another problem. And I'm not saying.
And I think we're talking more than just sanity disappearing, right?
Yeah. Well, you're sharing everything, and so next thing you know, all your silverware's gone, right? Where did it all go?
Man. I really hope that first family watches this episode at some point. Like, hey, that was us. We stole your silverware.
Oh, that was just an example. Actually, I didn't have anything like that. What we had happen was DVDs tended to disappear. Yeah.
Borrowing it. I thought this was mine.
Well, and the reason why I say have your own dedicated parking is we shared a driveway in the beginning, too. Like I said, we were essentially roommates, and so door dings happened. Dents in vehicles happened, like all those things. And so I learned also they need their separate parking so that your stuff doesn't get messed up.
Very true.
Wouldn't it have been nice if someone just told you needed this before you started?
It would have been nice. I'm all about finding the fastest, quickest way to do things the right way, and instead of trial and error. But sometimes trial and error really helps you grow into becoming a better person.
Sure.
Yeah, no, and I would 100% agree with that. So one of the other questions that kind of leads down at this similar path is, because so many people they like the idea of house hacking, but they get nervous and all this other stuff. So do you think house hacking is financially worth the reward?
Oh, well, I would say 100%. Anytime you can buy something and you get a benefit from it. In this case, you get a place to live, and then you also have somebody that helps subsidize your living expenses. It's a win-win. You have someone paying half your mortgage. No matter how you slice it, at the end of the day,
that's a win.
If you got someone paying half your house off for 30 years, if you keep doing that, pretty good deal, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you crunch the numbers, let's say a basement brings in $1,500 a month. That's $18,000 a year. That's a good chunk of change. And then over 5 years, you're almost at six figures. Mm-hmm. And people don't really take that into account very often.
Well, and I think the other thing, too, there's more factors, too, right? It does two things for you, especially if you're going to start investing in real estate. It starts your 2-year schedule because you have to have 2 years of tax records. So if you do it right, you'll have the tax records to actually start investing after the 2-year point. And then you'll also have the tax savings. Tax savings, something that gets overlooked, but your tax savings from having rentals, you do it right, it can offset a tremendous amount of your earned income. And that is a very, very powerful tool.
Yeah, so you've been in the Utah market a long time, around the 2008 era, and now we're in 2025. So in your opinion, do you feel like house hacking is the future of affordable housing now that you've been in the market for so long?
Yes, I would say, especially for the up and coming folks that don't own homes yet, it's absolutely the best way to probably buy your own single family home, because you can do this now while you have less income, and it will help supplement your income to help you get into a home so that you can start getting the appreciation from being a homeowner. And it also helps subsidize your income, so that your living expenses are less. I would say it's probably the best way to get into real estate, especially in the Utah market with the housing prices so high.
Well, and almost every house out here has a basement, and so many basements are just unutilized. Like, there's a lot of people that have basements and they just don't use them. It's just wasted square footage. So if you were to get somebody in, pay half your mortgage, you technically wouldn't even realize they were there, because you're not sacrificing space you're actually using.
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, that was kind of where I was at. We didn't use our basement. We just stored all our junk down there. Yeah. And so we thought the same way. We're like, we're not using it. Why not use it to benefit our lives a little bit? Yeah. 100%.
And one thing too, so I have 2 young kids, and in Utah, it's common, for a lot of families to have kids. But what you don't realize is to get a yard today and a single family home, like, they are a lot more expensive than a condo and townhome. So one of the few ways to actually get in is through house hacking. And then you can finally afford it, and you get what you really want for your children.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, it allows you to use your rental income to help you purchase the home. So it increases the amount of income you have, because you get to use the income coming from that, which is a super powerful tool when it comes to buying real estate.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's also a really powerful tool when you're wanting to scale and to buy more, because what we've kind of already talked about is you started house hacking. Let's rephrase that. You started house hacking the wrong way, yeah. And then you house hacked the right way, and then as you kept scaling and growing, now you've been able to have 2 8-plexes, and you're working on closing another 6-plex. And most people who have these dreams about real estate, and they're like, "Oh, I want to grow and scale and do these things," they see these things as like being impossible, and it's very intimidating, overwhelming. So how has house hacking kind of set you up to be able to start doing what most people see as impossible?
All right. Well, house hacking, I benefited by house hacking from increasing my income. I also was able to, one thing that people don't really talk about, I believe, in the house hacking space, is the fact that you can buy a single family home for your primary residence one time a year. So you can do this every single year. You could rent out your upper floor and then go buy yourself another house hack as a primary residence. And so it really gives you extra leverage, because you get the cheapest financing available, the lowest interest rates at the time of the market condition. And then you get the rent rolls that help you qualify. And you have just more buying power all the way around. And so organically will just help you turn into an investor if it's done right, because you'll start to change the way you think about it. Now all of a sudden I call it mailbox money. Now all of a sudden you get mailbox money. It's pretty nice, when someone gives you a check and you didn't really do much. You just bought a place and got it set up one time, and there's really minimal work if you have the right tenant. If you choose the right tenant, it's pretty nice.
No walking in DVDs, no, nothing disappearing under your watch. Maybe that was all worth getting into some of these bigger projects.
I know someone is listening to this that's like, what's a DVD?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they probably are.
And I just want to clarify something for those listening. So for those that are like first-time home buyers that are like, I want to get involved in real estate, you mentioned that as a home buyer, owner-occupied, it is cheaper. So for example, like today, rates are hovering just above 6%. You get that rate because it's a primary residence. Mm-hmm. If you go to buy, let's say, a duplex just out on your own, your interest rate will be usually 0.5% or a full percent higher, and you need 20 to 25% down. Versus owner-occupied, you could be 0 down, 3.5%, 5%. So the barrier to entry as an owner-occupied house hack is way better than trying to just invest and buy it straight up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a smaller down payment, and then you can take it one step further too. You know, you could go in, since you're going to create a house hack situation, you could go in and find a house that's needs some value add or some work.
Yep.
And you can spend a little sweat equity too. So not only did you get in at a low entry price with a low down payment, now you can create value add in the first few months by updating the house and get yourself a 30% spread really easy. So now you really own a home with 30% equity in it if you do it right.
Mm-hmm. You can tell you're a contractor. You know that stuff.
Right.
So let's say someone's listening to this podcast, haven't bought anything, and now they've been introduced to this house hacking concept. What's like the number one tip you would give to someone wanting to house hack for the first time?
Don't let fear control you. A lot of people talk about investing in real estate and then they get scared, or fear gets a hold of them, and they start worrying about the house because they can't afford it because they need the rent roll. You know, just don't let fear control you. If you know in your heart that this is something that you want to do, and as long as you play your cards right and you're smart with your money, and you always want a little reserves, if you do those things, you'll be fine. Don't let fear control you.
Love that. Love that, because so many people, they get so overwhelmed and they stay awake, wide awake at night, and they're like, oh my gosh, if I don't get a renter, I'm going into foreclosure. My life is ruined. And I try to like kind of talk them off the ledge a little bit and say like, those fears are rational. Like I'm understanding how they're getting to that point, but people still need a place to live, and we're still in a housing crisis.
Yeah.
Not everybody can afford to buy a house. So what do? They rent.
Yep.
So if you can buy one, you can find one to rent. And it's just such a good reminder that fear is always going to be there, but how you respond to it is going to set you up for one way or the other.
Yeah, that's right. I think fear stops a lot of people from doing a lot of things, and you have to get past that. It's fine to be fearful, but don't let it control you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, having the feelings makes you a person, makes
right.
you alive.
Yeah. And that's totally normal too. Like I still remember when I was buying my first property, like my wife and I were like so anxious that we almost backed out of it. And if we had, we would have missed out on the massive upside. And the thing I wish we had back then was a mentor or someone who had done it before. And that's a big reason behind Justin and I building HomeLord is you have a lot of people who are like, I want home ownership. I want a house hack. I just don't know how. And so once you fill those gaps of systems and knowledge, suddenly that nervousness goes away. And then next thing you know, they're actually doing it. And then, life is great. Life continues. So you got to have someone in your corner who can help you.
Absolutely. I didn't have a mentor either. Like I said, when I first started, we didn't really have Google. We couldn't just do everything at our fingertips. We had to figure it out. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, you can learn how to do it, and you can learn how to do it the right way faster, and you have data, right? Mm-hmm. So, but, fear definitely stops people because they worry about the component of debt way more than they should. I don't know how you get around that. Me personally, I know it's there. I still get nervous sometimes. We've transitioned into bigger deals. I still get very nervous about it, but we just make sure we're doing things the way we feel good about them, and we prepare for the worst. Hopefully that doesn't happen, and then we just go for it. And so far, I've had a lot of luck. So, if it wasn't for luck, I probably wouldn't be sitting here today.
Strategic luck.
Yeah, I was going to say.
An 8-plex is a good example. You could have 2 units not paying rent, worst case scenario, whatever. You still have 6 people covering a large portion of your mortgage.
Yeah.
So, even worst case scenario is still really good for what you do.
Well, and single-family homes, I personally like them a lot. I think they have a lot of upside potential because young families want to buy them, and they're easier to sell than the commercial properties. The financing is a little better terms on them. Mm-hmm. We pay higher points for the commercial loans and stuff. But when you do have a vacancy, you have a vacancy. The whole place is empty. So that's one downside to single family homes, but you have to start somewhere. You're not just going to go right out and do a big commercial deal. But house hacking is great because you're living in there and it's simply just supplementing your income to help you buy a home and your portion of the rent. And so it's a super great tool to do it and learn the ropes and decide if you even want to be a landlord. If nothing else, it will get you in your very first home. And you'll decide if you want to pursue the investment game or not.
Yeah, no, very well said. Because we do a lot of these podcasts and we talk to a lot of people, clients, people buying houses, people who've already bought houses, and we've kind of distilled it down to there's two things that stop people from buying, and it's fear and knowledge. And I think fear is amplified by the lack of knowledge. And one thing I want to hit on is we were talking before this about your experience when you were trying to find people who were knowledgeable so that they could help you achieve your goal of getting into multiple properties and investing. And honestly, I would just love to hear more about that side of the story, like what your experience was with trying to find different agents or brokers who just didn't know how to get creative or...
Yeah, sure. So when I'll just kind of back it up a little. I never really wanted to rent anything. When I was a young kid, my parents always said, buy your own house, don't pay rent. And it kind of stuck with me. From about the age of 16, I really started trying to figure out how I could do that. I actively started looking for homes at the age of 18 to purchase. I couldn't ever swing it. Young guy, it takes money to buy these things. I was able to buy my first home at the age of 21, living the American dream, found a house I could afford. We were doing good, all those things. And, we bought it in 2001, me and my wife at that time. And so it was like, I think it was end of 2008 when things really stopped. And that's when we realized, hey, we did everything that they told us to do. And now I'm going to go bankrupt. Basically work stopped. And so we really did it out of desperation, I guess, right? Like we needed some more money to put food on the table. And so the story began with that scenario. I decided, well, hey, I got to do something and I don't want to sell my house. You couldn't really sell your house. The house's prices dropped so much you were stuck. Now, I wasn't upside down because I'd never pulled equity out or anything like that. But nonetheless, you couldn't really sell anything at that time. So you either gave it back to the bank or you figured something out. And so we figured that out. And so we stumbled across it accidentally. And, we found out it was a nightmare doing the co-living thing. And then we ended up doing it the next way. And so from there, what we did is I realized after I finally set up the basement apartment correctly, I just remember sitting on my couch. It was like the first or second month the new tenant had got in there. It was our second tenant. And I got home from work at like 6 p.m. and all of a sudden I got a knock on my front door and I opened the door and someone just hands me a check. And I was like, I need to do more of this. Right? And so after that, we started saving all the money from the rents. Once we didn't need the income anymore, the economy got better. We started saving the money from the rents, and it actually funded my next purchase. And so we bought another one, and within I think 3 or 4 years, we ended up having four single family homes. And I ended up selling that primary residence, and then I bought 3 more. So by year 5, we had 6 single family homes. And then by year 9, I kind of got comfortable. I got used to the little extra income. We didn't really pursue it. We just thought we were living pretty high on the hog, and we were making good money, and I got lazy. So otherwise I'd be further than I am right now, but live and learn. And then a couple years passed and I decided I wasn't growing or expanding and I wanted to buy more. And so we went back to what we were doing before and we started buying more. And then by year 10, my goal was actually 10 homes in 10 years. I got to 9 in 10 years, which,
still great.
95% goal or 90% goal is pretty good, I feel like. And then we just kept going for it. We just kept, I actually left the Utah market because the housing prices were a little high and I wasn't house hacking anymore at that point. I got tired of moving. So we left the Salt Lake market and just started doing properties in other markets, and we've had good success with that as well. And then I just found out that I wanted to really pursue it. So we sold off the single family homes and we started buying bigger deals. Instead of having, like I said, when you have a single family home and you got a vacancy, you're responsible for the whole mortgage. And so my concept was I started buying a couple duplexes, and I liked it. If one side was not rented, it still covered half the mortgage. And I just kind of developed into going to multifamily. So
I think that's awesome. No, I think that's a great timeline, backstory, whatever you want to call it. Like it shows that just by doing the things that you know are going to work consistently, you can grow this much, much larger than just one house that covers half your mortgage. Like it can be a very good propellant to help get you forward in your goals.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you do it right, and let's just say every house you have a $500 a month cash flow, positive cash flow, you get 10 of those.
That's $60,000 a year.
That's you could almost quit your job if you do it right, So you get 20 of those, and then you get time on your side. The thing that no one ever talks about is real estate's one of those things where you just buy it, you buy it right, and then you just wait. You let it mature, and 5 to 10 years is so good. If you can hang on to it, if you bought 10 homes and you can hang on to them for 10 years, historically they double every 10 years. And so if you had a house 10 houses that would go up $100,000 or even $200,000 in 10 years, and you were to sell every one of those or even sell them in 1031 into a new project, that's $1 to $2 million in 10 years that you made without working.
Yep.
And you don't make that kind of money working. It just doesn't happen. And your dollar gets depreciated every year with the feds printing money. So, you can't just save money. Saving money, you're losing 3 to 6% a year saving money. And so, housing market typically keeps up with inflation, if not outpaces inflation. So it's a super great place to have your money tied up anyways. The only downside is it's not liquid, right? So, just because you have $1 million in real estate, it's not like you just have it laying around in the bank.
It's not like you're going to buy a Lambo.
So you're still poor. Like I invest every penny I can every year, and I'm still broke every year. I do that on purpose because when I have a pot of money, I tend to want to go buy something stupid, and I don't want to go buy something stupid. So as soon as I have it, I go and do something else, something positive with it.
Yeah. Your story is so good, Cliff, because you got started with house hacking. You have the good path and vision that a lot of people dream about, having it be the stepping stone to something bigger. You have a real estate portfolio that you can liquidate at some point. You can keep it for retirement. You have options. And I think that's a critical piece to your story of how real estate has blessed your life. And it all started with house hacking. And it
100%.
didn't go perfect at all the first time. But you learn from your mistakes. You got it done the right way, and look at what you've done in over a decade. So
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a good run.
Yeah.
And I'll tell
you're
you
still
what.
going.
And you're not done.
I'm not done, but I'll say this, there's ups and downs. If you're going to do it, there's ups and downs, no matter what. And you just can't let it get under your skin. You just got to keep your target, and just make sure just remember your reason why, or why you're wanting to do these things, because there's going to be some turbulence. You're going to have some stressful times, especially the more doors you get. But eventually I would say once you get to about past 5, once you getting past 5, it starts getting a little easier. Your first one is by far the hardest. And then when you start understanding the process, you get more and more comfortable with it.
It's kind of like riding a bike.
Yes.
Like once you fall down a couple times, you're like, oh, I could do this.
Yeah. Yeah, and you'll figure out how to make it almost seamless. Like, I go into my banking and I have all my bills set up automatically. I don't got to worry about it. All I have to worry about is making sure the rent checks are in my bank before the bills go out. And that's it for the most part, and it's pretty seamless that way. I would recommend, I do my own books. It's a pain in the butt. I would recommend not doing that. But
you prove a point that we talk about in our free class all the time, that as a landlord, once you have all your systems down, literally, even with multiple units, you can spend less than 5 minutes a month. And that 5 minutes is usually making sure you got paid. And
Pretty
that's
much,
it.
yeah.
And then the rest can be pretty reactionary. So you're living proof of what's possible.
Yeah, that's true. If you do it right, it's very minimal effort. I just log in a couple times a month, really, and I just make sure things are getting paid, and then I just worry when like today, for example, this morning, I went and deposited a nice check into my account. It's that time, and here we go.
Do I need to give you my routing number?
I can tell Cliff likes the first of the month. It's his dopamine rush. He's just
It'd
like,
be mine too, 22, 28, whatever units.
yeah, I know that's like eight. How many? Sorry, 16 units right now is what
22.
you have? 20. Yeah, 22 checks a month. Golly, man.
Yeah, 22. Yeah, I mean, it's good. We're not cash flowing as good. These bigger purchases, I was cash flowing better before I sold off in 1031. But once again, interest rates are high. There's a couple things right now. Interest rates are high. One thing that people have going for them right now is that with the interest rates being high, there's less buyers, less competition. And so you can go out and buy some deals. And I believe in the next year, maybe 18 months, we're probably going to see rates come down more and more. And, I also believe if rates get down in the 5s or the 4s again, you won't be able to touch
the pendulum
anything.
will swing back to the sellers.
You'll have so much competition. Mm-hmm. And you'll have house prices skyrocket because people will have bidding up wars. Like, now's the time to get in before that happens. And once that happens, you're gonna miss the low part of the cycle. Right now is a really good time to buy.
As agents, we get a lot of flack for telling people that because they think that's just what we tell people. But it's coming from someone who's been in the industry now for a few decades.
Yeah, and the reason I say that is, it just goes back to what I was saying. Now, I've been buying these bigger deals. So we transitioned a bunch of single-family homes. I've started doing it in 2023, and this is the last one I'll be doing this year. And so we've done 3 of them, and we did it strategically, even though cash flow is not going to be as good right now. It's more we're still cash flowing, but it's very minimal. It's not as much as I was before, but we're strategically doing that by buying bigger deals with less competition. And so as soon as rates drop, we'll refinance, and then it's going to be a nice payday after that. So we're just grinding our teeth right now and biding our time.
Let's go, man.
Awesome. Well, dude, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast and sharing your wisdom, your story, and just showing that it's possible to start with a house hack and scale into an actual real estate investor. Really appreciate your insights. Thank you for all of that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Cliff.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys. It's been fun.